Hello everyone and welcome back to Adventures with Kalive. So in the previous episode, we spoke with several people at the Last Light Inn to get caught up on what has been happening there. Jaheira told us that our enemy was Ketheric Thorn, and that he has some sort of magic that makes him immortal, and we are tasked to find his weakness and then destroy him. We also helped Hausen on his quest to free the lands from the Shadow Curse. He asked us to find out where Thaniel is, and Thaniel is someone who is key in restoring this place. We spoke with Isabel to try to find a way to be protected from the shadows, and we were able to obtain the Saloon's blessing from her. This will allow us to travel throughout most of the cursed areas. And then finally we were able to obtain the Pixie blessing, which lets us travel throughout all of the cursed areas, giving us the freedom to explore. Now that we have the freedom to move around, we can take on any task in the zone. There are quite a few ambushes scattered throughout the eastern part of the map, so if it's an old ruin, then it probably contains some sort of shadow creatures that you have to fight. And the benefit of this is that these fights will be providing us with some items that we can sell and some experience to level up with. And there are also several trinkets like rings that we can use, and they can be pretty useful and actually replace the current ones that we have on our party. I would recommend fighting as many of these as you can and try to get as many levels as possible before the final fight of Act 2. First thing we're going to do is start off by visiting the camp for a long rest. And this will trigger more quests for us and also progress other quests. So during this time in the Shadowheart lands, you will get a quest progression for Wyll. You'll be visited by an image of Meazel, and the fact that she's an image is a clue to what this quest is about. She will have a new task for Wyll, and that will be to rescue someone from the Absolute. At this point, you may or may not pass a perception check.
Meazor's words may be flippant, but they are tinged with desperation. She cannot afford for Wyll to fail this mission. This may be your best chance to negotiate Wyll out of his pact.
And you can use this perception check to push to get Wyll out of his contract. However, you will need to pass another check to succeed. And if successful, Meazel will agree, but will have a stipulation along with it. So now you are tasked with saving this mystery person from the Absolute at Moonrise Tower. There will also be an update for Astarian, and his is simple. He just wants to find Raphael and make a deal with him. He doesn't quite say what he wants, but you can agree or disagree with helping him to find the demon. And while you sleep, you will be visited by the Guardian, and they'll talk with you about your choices in Act 1, whether you save the grove or not. They will also update you on how hard it is to keep you safe from the Absolute, and that it has been trying to change you into a mind flayer.
Each wave a set of orders to the infected. The order for your transformation has been given many times already.
And Shadowheart will also want to talk to you. She will show you what her last memory was before she became a Shar worshipper. And there are some clues in there that she may have been a worshipper of Saloon before the incident with the wolf. And these clues will be helpful later on when it comes to the end of her main quest, and the choice of who she will become must be made. Alright, with all the quest stuff out the way, we can start working on the fun stuff. So let's start to the south and work our way north while we explore the area and partake in combat. The first fight we will encounter will be against the Shadow Blights, and these are very common in this area. And here's the location of where we are on the map. And you will be ambushed, so be careful. The fight can be a little overwhelming, but once you understand how to deal with the smaller ones, it does become a lot easier. So the weakness for the smaller ones is that when they are killed, they will explode, causing damage to everything around them. So this can be used to your advantage, as you can try to kill one of them that is in the middle of the group, and hopefully it will cause a chain reaction, killing the rest of them. The slightly bigger blights have an ability to root someone in place from a long distance, and this does become problematic, especially for your melee, where they can be locked down and unable to damage enemies. And once you're done with this fight, be sure to loot the chest that's nearby. The next place we will be heading to will be the Potter's House. And the location for this place is here, just west of the shadowed battlefield waypoint. If you walk too far in, you will be ambushed by a pack of Meazels. You can engage them outside of their aggro range so that you aren't overrun. These guys have two abilities that can be very problematic. The first is they will have a shadow teleport that lets them get next to one of your party members or flee away from the group if they are losing. The second ability is Garrote, which if successful will deal damage to their target and silence them. If the target is garroted, they can also be teleported away from the group, which can be particularly bad for a caster that cannot fight back. In order to combat this, you need to be sure to keep everyone close together for this fight. Once the fight is concluded, be sure to get to the chest on the ledge just above where the fight took place. The next place we will want to go is just north of the Potter's house, to a small area with a lot of magical torches all around it. You will find a true soul that has been killed by some mysterious creatures, and you'll get even more clues from the notebook in the backpack that is close by. The notebook mentions that a light barrier was created to keep away some sort of monsters. You can fight the monsters by destroying all of the magical torches that light up the area, and this will summon several shadow mastiffs, which will probably be a much lower level than you at this point. This fight should be fairly easy to deal with, and you're most likely going to take out 1 or 2 of them per player per turn. And once you've dispatched all of them, be sure to loot the Alpha Mastiff. He will have a ring that is fairly good, dealing extra damage to shadow creatures and creatures that are obscured. The next place we'll be going to is a small house that is very close to the shadowed battlefield waypoint. At this house, you'll meet a boy named Oliver who seems to be part shadow and part tiefling. Oliver will play a more significant role later on in the act. For now, when we meet him, he will ask us to play with him. If you accept, he will want to play hide and seek.
Alright, I'll hide and you seek. Find me and you win.
And if you do not accept, he will become angry and potentially hostile, which can impact quests later on. The first time you play with him, he will go invisible and run to a location nearby. You can run around, and if you pass a perception check, you can uncover him. He will talk to you immediately after and ask to play another round. If you accept, he will summon 3 shadow creatures, which he calls his family, and they are hostile. You'll need to avoid the creature's line of sight and find Oliver. If you're caught, you will need to fight his family, which Oliver doesn't seem to mind. Whether you won or lost, he will give you a ring that contains the spell Pass Without Trace. The next location we will head to is the ruins, which is northwest of Oliver's house. However, you will need to run around back past the shadow battlefield waypoint and then head north to get there. These ruins will contain more shadow blights like we fought earlier. However, there will be many more smaller ones and also a much bigger one called the Shambling Mound. You can easily group up the smaller ones in a funnel to the stairs and take them out as a group. The Shambling Mound is level 9 and has significantly more hit points than the others. You'll want to take care of the weaker ones first so that you're not taking additional damage throughout the fight. And once you're done here, you can find a chest in the rafters of the ruins above where you fought. And in the chest will be a ring that allows the user to cast a self-immolation, dealing fire damage to enemies nearby. Just north of the bridge to the Last Light Inn, you will find a raven on the ground. The raven appears to be affected by the shadow curse, and if you approach the bird and attempt to touch it, more ravens will spawn. These birds have very little hit points and can be quickly dispatched with any sort of AoE. And there really isn't any loot in this area, so you can just move on from here. After the raven encounter, we will head further east and come across some routes to an old house. Here's a location on the map, and this is another ambush point for a smaller group of blights. You can see their line of sight if you are holding shift and walking around. You can attempt to surprise them if you hit one of them with an AoE. This fight will be a lot easier than the previous Blight fights if you are not surprised. And once you have beaten them, there is a wooden chest on the ledge above the battlefield, but there isn't anything of significance inside it. Even further to the east, you will come across a man who is performing a Speak with the Dead ritual. This man is known as He Who Was, and he will notice that you are immune to the shadows and ask you for help in retrieving something.
A fair point. Perhaps this one could assist us. The murdered lie silent. The raven asks, will you be their voice?
He will tell you a story of what happened to this person and wants you to find a ledger as evidence against her crimes. This quest will take you over to the western portion of the map, which can be completed later on. The only other places of note is the far north, which is the entrance to the Grimforge, as well as a journal you can find discussing the Shadow Curse. And that concludes the eastern part of the Shadow Cursed lands. So we fought a lot of blights, mastiffs, and other shadow creatures. We picked up a few good items along the way. We also met Oliver, who will be important later on. And finally we talked with He Who Was, and we'll help him with his quest for justice. So that concludes this episode. I thank you for all the support. It is very much appreciated. I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.